This is the Made for Success podcast, and this is Chris Widener, speaker and author of over 15 books, including the New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller, The Angel Inside. The Made for Success podcast will help you turn your potential into performance, succeed in every area of your life, and achieve your dreams. And now, enjoy the show.
My guest today is John Alston. John is an internationally known performance strategist whose programs have lifted the spirits of millions of people across the world. John is one of only 77 people to have earned the Certified Speaking Professional and CPAE Speaker Hall of Fame recognitions that honors excellence in professional speaking. As a keynote speaker and trainer, John masterfully uses humor, personal experience, and storytelling in helping people to become successful and a good person. His message is for people to celebrate life's journey through character, decency, and common sense. As well as being a speaker, trainer, and educator, John is also an author of 4 books, including Life is a Gift, Don't Trash It, and Stuff Happens, and Then You Fix It. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
One of the things that always fascinates me is to find out where people came from. Because, you know, we tend to see the people who are on this show in where they are. Usually very successful people who are speakers or authors or successful business people. And that's kind of the universe in which we see them. But it's equally as fascinating to find out where they came from. So tell us about growing up. Where'd you come from? What was your family like? Did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up? You know, what you were going to do and travel around the world and speak? What was life like growing up, and how did it affect you?
Well, I grew up in Los Angeles, California. My mother was a school teacher. My father was a police officer, and I have a sister. And my parents got divorced when I was 7. And as a result of that, my grandfather kind of stepped in and filled the gap. And he is always an inspiration to me. He's always one that helped. In fact, he's the source of my latest book, which is coming out. It's called Goodness Must Be Taught. And he was a unique man. I never saw him get angry at anybody. It's not that he didn't get angry. I just never saw him express it in a wild and crazy way. If there was a mantra in my life growing up, is that get an education. Once you get it, they can never take it away from you. And when it came to education, I wasn't always the sharpest knife in the drawer. I just knew that education was important, so at least I jumped through those hoops and did what was necessary to get there. I was going to be a dentist. Found out that wasn't for me. And went on to finish school, and I taught elementary school for a while. Then I went into, I started doing some innovative things that were kind of different, and no one had ever tried this. And as I did that, it got the attention of somebody else, so I became a consultant. And then I went on and got an advanced degree, and after doing that, part of the job that I had required that I speak, and I wasn't very good at it. And I made up my mind. I said, if I'm going to do this, I have to get better at it. I got to refine it. I got to develop it. So what I did is I constantly worked at the craft. And as a result of just working at it and trying to put some pieces together, eventually one day somebody heard me say, I want you to come speak to my group. And then somebody else heard me speak, and it just kind of evolved. And it was over a period of time that I began to find out what my real interests were, the things I was interested in. And so I began to develop speeches around some of those interests. And it just, it has an attractive quality to it. When you start to do what you really love and enjoy, it starts to unfold.
Now, you told me that you've spoken to lots of school assemblies.
I have done that.
How many do you suppose you've done in your lifetime?
Oh, how many?
Yeah.
Oh, boy, I guess from when I started doing things with large groups of youngsters, I guess, in 1982 up to the present,
thousands and thousands and thousands.
Yeah, hundreds of schools and millions of kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I mean, that is the toughest crowd.
It is.
You know, to be able to stand in front of a group of junior hires and present yourself, you got guts.
Right.
I know you got
Well, you
guts.
know, you deal with all the elements. You're not in an auditorium all the time. Sometimes you're in a field house or a gym, and occasionally I had to do it outside. Which I don't do anymore.
Yeah,
the
rules, the contract, no outside.
But the thing that's important is to, I think, hone in on their reality. You know, I think kids are very unforgiving. You got to speak the truth, and also speak from where you are, your purpose. And my purpose is for them to have a good life and to do better and to go out and make something themselves. And I think also teachers also need affirmation. They need to be able to see that it can be done. You can keep kids' attention by talking about things that make sense to them and have a little humor to it, things that are meaningful.
You know, the saying, kids nowadays. you know, or kids nowadays this, or kids have it tougher nowadays than they had it when I used to think, oh, brother, you know. But now I look at my children who are moving into high school, and you really do feel a sense of, wow, the things that they're encountering now. What are the similarities that kids always have? And then what do you think are some of the unique challenges that today's generation of teenagers are facing?
Well, if I went back to my 3 things, number one, human nature, there are things that teenagers, all kids go through, developmental stages that they go through, and you can count on certain things happening at those stages. I mean, at some point, all kids want independence. They have this sense of identity they want to establish. They have this sense of, like, I mean, hormones affect males and females differently. So one of the things that is consistent throughout the ages is that teenagers do go to that point where they are going to rebel and test the water and push it a little bit. The thing I think is important is in their early years that parents give them a foundation. As I established earlier, my parents said education is important. They always encouraged me, and they never used humiliation as a form of motivation. They always encouraged me, told me what's possible, and the world is out there for me.
Growing up in a cop's house.
Well, remember, he left when I was 7.
Oh, okay. So then your grandpa, right, okay.
Right.
Was he a tough guy on you?
That's another story.
Okay.
That's another story, you know. Looking at the other thing, in terms of the human condition, I think the human condition has changed. And youngsters today are constantly exposed to things that are a lot different and in a greater intensity and more in a more robust way than ever before. We are kind of in a culture of fear. You know, you're fearful to go outside. You're fearful of who's going to snatch you. You're fearful of, like, predators on the internet. I mean, we're fearful of some guy in a cave with a dialysis machine on him, and we're worried whether he's going to blow up this and blow up that. I mean, we have this constant thing of fear. Will I lose my house? Will I lose my job? And it washes over kids. And we watch movies and videos and music, and we hear a lot of things that are kind of sending out the message that I'm concerned about. I want youngsters to know that, you know, it's not that bad. And I want adults to know it's not just the kids.
Yeah, right.
It's us, you know, and we're a part of this, and we all weave this tapestry of what's going on here. And at some point, we have to say, you know, this is where we draw the line, and there's things that are appropriate and inappropriate, and there are things that are good, and there are things that are bad. One of the things I'm very clear about is civility lowers the tension in our lives. And when people are uncivil to each other, it drives the tension up and sometimes escalates things to a point of even violence. So where does that come from? Well, it comes from one of the things that everybody in every culture wants: love and respect. People want to be respected. People want to be loved. People want to have a sense of accomplishment. They want to have a sense of utility. They want to be healthy. Generally. I mean, these are things, you help people get those things, life becomes more beautiful, more livable. When you deprive people of those things, you get in the way of those things, it gets pretty dicey. So my message for adults is that we have to look at ourselves and ask ourselves, what message are we sending to kids, whether you have kids of your own or not? And I think the world in which we live, there's so many things that are being thrown at us. If you watch the news, you know, you could easily go nuts thinking that the world is falling apart. I used to have a scanner, a police scanner. And just for kicks, I used to listen to it. I threw it away.
Oh, because you're just hearing bad stuff all day long.
When you would never go outside if you constantly listen to that scanner. And I keep wondering, what are we telling kids about life?
Yeah.
We tell kids about you can't make it because of racism. You can't make it because of poverty. You can't make it because you're a girl. You can't make it because you're fat. You can't make it. If you don't learn this now, you'll never learn it later. Telling you everybody has to go to college, that's not true. You tell you got to get ready for the test. We got to test you. No child left behind. We're going to test you. And the fact is, they don't let them prepare for the test and don't have them. I mean, it's like, if I don't pass this test, my life is going to fall apart. It's just more and more. And there are a host of things that I think that we need to at least look at. And if nothing else, if we can't change all those things, at least provide a filter through which people can adjust their worldview and understand one message I think that's important. You count. And if you study great leaders, you'll see that great leaders always do certain things. 3 in particular. And I went over this with my coach. Number 1, they knew who they were. You know, I said know yourself earlier. You got to know who you are. And when you know who you are, you know your assets, you know your liabilities, you know your purpose, and you know that there are certain things you can do to pursue that purpose, and it's going to make things better. You know, it's like when you look at Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, they were pretty clear.
Yeah.
You know? And I know you're interested in leadership things. And one of the things great leaders do is they hoist a vision. And then they don't have to beg anybody to follow them. Because people say, that's where I'm going.
Yeah. It's compelling.
I want that. I want that. When Martin Luther King gave that speech and said, one day, you know, the slaves and former slave owners will sit down together. I mean, that vision, people say, yeah, man, that's where I want to go. Yeah. Mother Teresa said, we're going to take care of people here, now, in the streets of Calcutta. I'm not going to wait to get over here. She said, this is what we do right now. People says, I'm with you. So yeah, the Sisters of Charity, I'm with you. So you hoist the vision, and that's what great leaders do. They know themselves, and they have that vision. They say, this is where I'm going. I'm not begging you to come with me. If you want on this train, come on.
Yeah.
And number two, they know how to express it eloquently. They're excellent expressing the vision. You know, they can tell you about it. They can express themselves. And it becomes through their expression. So I'm a big advocate of helping people learn how to express themselves well. When I work with the youngsters I work with in some of my programs, one of the things we stress is the ability to express yourself well. And the third thing, and I think this is really where people get it all mixed up, since people are always looking to be fulfilled, and they think if I have the Porsche, if I have the house, if I have the clothes, I have the hair, I have the right weight, the right skin tone, the right eyes, if you keep focusing that way, you're never going to feel fulfilled. The thing the great leaders did is they made a contribution. And it's in making a contribution that your life becomes fulfilled. You know, and you said, on what basis do I make a contribution? Well, you find out what you really love. You find out what it is that really moves you. And you find out between those two extremes of goosebumps and rage, and you take an inventory of the things that move you, you will find there are places where you connect with reality and you say, you know what, this is something that is so important to me that I have to do it. And you look at like Martin Luther King, there's a story. They said Martin Luther King was walking down the street one day, and a man walked up to him, a white man walked up to him and said, are you Martin Luther King? And he says, yes, I am. And the man cleared his throat and spit in King's face. And the story is that he reached in, he took out a handkerchief. He wiped it off and he said, here, I think this belongs to you. Now, in that moment, what do you think he really stood for? You know, I hear people say he stood for justice, he stood for brotherhood, but I don't know today if I could do that. But more than anything else, he stood for nonviolence. So when you look at the people that find what their real purpose is, nothing takes them off track. And once they get on it, they will go to their grave knowing that every minute and every day that they did what they're here to do. And when you do that, what more is there?
Let's take a 20-second break to thank our sponsor, Made for Success Publishing. For listeners of this show, visit madeforsuccess.com/podcast and enjoy half off of the world's most popular personal development audiobooks. Use coupon code SUCCESS at checkout for a 50% savings. Now, back to the Made for Success podcast show.
And one of the things that drives you is helping kids, and we've talked some about that. But one of the most fascinating things that I found out about you is you run something called the Achiever Program.
Right. That's supported by the Angel City Links in Los Angeles.
Tell us all about that. It's fascinating.
Started
and incredibly good.
Yeah, it started in 1982. They asked me to motivate a group of young men who were talking about going to college, all high school seniors, all happen to be black males. They are young men that come to my program, and we talk about character issues. We talk about a host of issues relative to life and the things that I've talked about here. In the process, I've been doing it now 22 years, and some of the young men that have gone through the program, some of them are now physicians and attorneys and teachers and ministers and in all fields. And the most gratifying thing is that they got something that was worthwhile and helped spur them on to do what they want to do in their life. So in doing this program, part of the training includes a project And in the last few years, what we've done is we find a house in a community that needs some work, and we do cosmetic repairs on the house with the owner's permission and at no cost to the owner. So I will have anywhere, in this year my group, I have 42 boys.
Wow.
So we show up at 7:30 in the morning, and the goal is to finish by 2 o'clock. And so my 40 boys attack a house with brushes and scrapers and brooms and weed whackers, and we bring in a big dumpster and we pull out trash. The last place we did had weeds and things all over it, and there was a man and his wife, elderly, and their house had just fallen into disrepair. And we sometimes replace windows and rejoin parts of the roof and things. We don't do building like you might find in Habitat for Humanity, but what we do is we take this house and with what resources we have and also the team effort, we transform this house. And we videotape it. And then afterward, the young men get to see it, and they also, every time they walk past that house, they will know what they've done. They've accomplished something.
Now, is it once a month that they do something?
We meet once a month for 5 months.
Okay.
On a Saturday.
Yeah.
And the meetings, we go from 7:59 in the morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I go through the curriculum. And then at the end of the program, we give scholarships to young men based on entrepreneurship, based on academics, based on financial need, and also based on artistic ability.
Oh, yeah.
So we have 4 categories. And we've given over $1 million in scholarships to young men, some of whom have gone to Morehouse, and some have gone to Clark, and some have gone to Tulane, and some have gone to Colgate and Stanford. And we have had a host of young men go through the program, and it's one of the most gratifying things in my work.
Where does the money come from to give the scholarships?
Comes from a lot of sources. You know, it's like they're a 501(c) organization, so they get donations. They get people some of the young men who have been through the program are now donating since it's been 20 years. Some of them are now 38 and 40 years old, so they have families and started careers, so they're making donations. So we get money from wherever we can, and it's a program that it attracts money because of what we're doing.
Yeah. Kids are nominated into the program?
Either from their school or sometimes from various organizations in the community. They notice these young men, say that they look like they're on track. You know, one thing that we have tended to do, and remember I talked about fear and where people tend to focus, we tend to focus only on the negative and the pathology that exists in certain communities. So what we've done is we try to identify those who are wanting to do things and families that are trying to get things going and put some focus there and help these young men because they're on track, and we really provide a launch pad for them to go on into the world and do things. It's that we don't ignore anybody else. Anybody can get into the program once they go through the screening, but generally speaking, what we try to do is capture young men and get their interests up and have them think about what's possible and broaden their scope and their perspective and deepen their sense of character. Remember, that's one of my big things, is focusing on character.
Now, we want to talk about character, because as we were prepping for the show, I said, you know, a lot of people will use the word character, but what in the world is it? You know, it's like, we need character, we need integrity. There's certain words that we kind of know generally ballpark what it is. We have a general sense.
Yeah.
What is it? What is character? If somebody's supposed to have it, what is it?
Well, my definition is character really is the constellation of virtues that create what I call integrity. When I talk about the constellation of virtues, it's just like you look at the sky, you see all these different stars. Well, a lot of virtues, as I say, come together and make up integrity. When I was growing up, it was trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Those were the Boy Scout kind of things.
Yeah.
They affected me. But there are others, you know, and, you know, you can talk about citizenship, you can talk about just being caring, all those things. Whatever you decide as part of your character equation, the things they ultimately result in you being a good, decent human being. And character is strength, you know, to go through things, to get through things. Strength to be a person that can get through the rough times and not cave in. You know, many great leaders came through situations because of their integrity. You know, you remember Shackleton
Yeah.
was stuck up
Yeah.
in the Arctic, and he insisted that they do certain things, and they helped keep them together. Frank Bridget, the march to Bataan in World War II, all the survivors of that march were thrown into the hold of a ship, and it was so horrible, the conditions. They were about to attack and fight each other. It was Frank Bridget that stood up and in this calming tone got them to calm down and tell them we will not survive this way. So maybe one of the elements of character there is having peace of mind and knowing that no problem is bigger than you are, and what we'll do, we will get through this, but we will not get through it if we attack and hurt each other. We have to be considerate. We have to slow down, cool your jets a little bit. So sometimes leaders emerge in a crisis where they would never have emerged, but it was some set of elements that gave them strength to get to that point. And it's those things coming together, I think, represent character.
So is character forged in difficult times, or is it revealed in difficult times, or
Maybe
both?
both.
Or both. Yeah.
Maybe both.
How can you grow a character? How do you, because you work with kids and you say, okay, we want these kids to be of stellar character, and people come in at varying levels of character. You know, some have more trustworthiness than others, more loyalty than others. How do you
I don't know.
develop
I think, however it's done, I think it helps to start early. I think it helps to start when a youngster is in the most formative years. I think between 6 months and 14, when a lot of things are happening. I think a lot is done there. Yeah. I think it's the way you encourage. I think it's what you support. When I was teaching school years ago, there was a family that taught their kids how to steal. They would go into the supermarket and they would wear big coats, and the mother and father actually taught them how to shoplift.
Purposely.
Yes, and their excuse was, well, we're poor, they had all kinds of reasons, but everybody who does a criminal act has a reason and thinks that they're right in doing it. I think that you could learn to be that way. That could be part of your raison d'etre, your reason for being. At the same time, starting early, you can teach youngsters to be thoughtful and be considerate. And they learn by what they watch their parents do. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking, because every parent tells their children, don't lie. And then they call their boss, and little Johnny's sitting on the couch, and they say, oh, I'm not going to be able to come in today, I'm sick.
Or don't steal, and they bring home things from the office, pencils and papers and erasers and clips, and say, or they go to a hotel and they take the towels. And, there are a host of things that one can do. I think the thing that's important is learn how to be congruent. Be what you want to see. If you want your kid to be decent, you have to be decent. And one of the things I tell my daughter all the time is, one of the ways to judge a guy, if you are to judge them, is watch how he treats people he doesn't know very well. Waiters. Watch how he treats the custodian. Watch how he treats gardeners. Watch how he treats people who, have no attachment to him, and see it in just general parlance. The other thing I think is important is to watch how he treats his parents. You can kind of make some assessment, because at some point, if he treats the people that he's supposed to love a certain way, you can almost be assured he's going to treat you that way at some point. So I think that it's important to be able to look for indicators, to be able to see certain things. At the same time, I think with youngsters, it's important to start early. Now, not having that, there's some things that amaze me, because there's some kids that grow up in spite of how they are raised. And, they may have come up out of the worst conditions, and there's some people come up in the best conditions, and they turn out to be jerks.
Cruddy people.
So, it's really one of life's great paradoxes, I think. But I think what we must do, though, is hoist the flag and get people to say, okay, it's better to be nice than it is to be coarse and to hold people in low regard. I think it's important to respect people, to be considerate of others, and to take time, and probably more than anything else, to listen. I think one of the great things today is people just don't listen.
We're going to do something rapid fire here, because I want to go through your book, Stuff Happens, and You Fix It. You have 9 principles. I'm going to give them to you, and you give me 30 seconds on each one, all right? Because I think they're great, and I want to hear what you have to say about them. Okay, learn to say thank you in the morning.
Yeah, I wake up every day and say thank you because, it could be the first and last, it is the first and last day of your next day, and...
Do you say it out loud?
I say it. Yeah, I do. Even when I get up and have little pains. It's a good, I'm glad that the orifices in my body, they're supposed to open when they're open, and the ones that close when they close. And I'm glad that I can move. I get up, I go exercise. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for my car. I'm grateful for my home. I'm grateful for everything. And just sometimes I forget. Yeah. So, the main thing is to stay on track. Keep reminding yourself. There's a lot to be grateful for. I mean, why are you here now? Yeah. How'd you end up doing this? Yeah. Why you? Why aren't you in some other place, where the worst things are happening to people? I think people get up nowhere, and a lot of people can't make the distinction between a problem and an inconvenience. Mm. And they just moan, groan, whine, and it's so unattractive. When you have gratitude, man, things just... Yeah. It's a different world. I'm grateful for this, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Never forget life is a gift.
It is. Yeah. What more do I need to say about that?
All right, number 3. Shout why me. I like this one. Every day you should shout why me, but it's different than what most people do. It's not why me.
Okay, most people asking why me when bad things happen. Start saying why me when good stuff happens. Because then it'll help you keep your balance sheet right. If you just say why me when bad things happen, all you're going to do is end up just thinking, why me? And it's just, it affects everything that you do, You start to get cynical. In fact, getting back to my father a little bit, the police officer, one of the downsides of police work is there is a tendency to get very cynical because you're working with the underbelly of life, you're seeing the worst side of people, and it's easy to get stuck there. But the thing to do is to get to a point where you can turn it around and not focus just on the dark side. Yeah. There are some beautiful things that people do every day, and there are beautiful things that you can do every day. So this whole thing of why me, I think, is important to keep a perspective on reality. Yeah. Start saying why me when good stuff happens. I had a friend that I had as a roommate when I came out of college. We had rented a house together, and we had good times together. Well, they found him dead of a heart attack at the bottom of a vending machine in a hotel right in Texas. And he wasn't any older than I was. So I say, why me? Why am I still here? I said, because my work's not finished, And I say, why me when good stuff happens?
All right, number 4, this is the Muhammad Ali principle. Say, I am the greatest.
That's not one of the 4, though. I mean,
it is. It's number 4. Say, I am the greatest. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Say, I'm the greatest?
I like to say it, know that you count for something.
Okay.
Know that you have the ability to make a difference. Go forth in the world never thinking that there's no problem bigger than you are. And when you find yourself challenged, know there is something out there that will help you engage and to meet that challenge. There's nothing bigger than you are.
And you say that you have the resources within you.
Yes.
To meet that capacity.
Yes.
And that's an important thing to know.
Having the resources within you means not thinking that you have to do it all yourself, but sometimes the resource means go ask a question. Sometimes the resource means seek out somebody who knows more about this than you do. So when I say the resources are within you, that's where you get started.
Right.
And then you go forth.
Sometimes you have to tap your network, your friends.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one, give back to the world.
Yeah. Well, let me just, I'm going to put a few of these things together here.
Yeah.
There are 5 points that I make to people. I don't care what group I'm with. I don't care who I'm talking to. There are 5 points. Number 1, I say life's a gift. Don't trash it. Number 2, the greatest gift you have is your mind. Your mind enables you to meet challenges, solve problems, and take advantage of opportunities. Your mind enables you to frame a philosophy. Your religion puts things together. Number 3, there's a goal in the game of life, and that's for each and every one of us to fully develop our talents and our skills and then give them away. And when you give them away, the world opens up and the universe gives back. Number 4 is be the most decent human being you can be. When things are broken, let's get together and fix them. When they're dirty, let's get together and clean them up. If you see somebody suffering, let's reach out to help them. If you see an injustice, let's stand up and fight to make it right. And number 5, never, ever, ever again take people or time for granted. My first wife is deceased. She woke up one morning, she couldn't move, and no one was there to help her. And she lay in bed and finally mustered up enough strength to roll out of bed and crawl to a phone and summon an ambulance. And they took her to the hospital, and they found that the disease that she had moved from her breast to her spine. She didn't live to be 30 years old. And all I could think about at times, I could have said thank you, or told her how beautiful she was, or told her how much she meant to me at that time. Well, you know, today I'm married again, married 22 years. I don't leave my house without hugging and kissing my wife and daughter goodbye, even to go to the store for 10 minutes, because you just don't know. So I say, don't take people and don't take time for granted. You know, live each moment and know that life is a gift.
Thanks for listening to the Made for Success podcast. Get to know us at madeforsuccess.com/podcast. Meet the hosts of the Made for Success podcast and pick up a free copy of the Totally Motivated ebook by Chris Widener. We will see you next time on the Made for Success podcast.